on. Well, good evening, everybody. It's Brendan Baylott and Ric Mixter. We're here on Great Lakes Shipwrecks live, live on St. Patty's Day. I'm going to give it a few minutes for our guests to join. If you are online, give us a note and let us know you're there. So far, we've got 2 people, it looks like. Probably you and me.
I hope so.
Okay, we're live.
My mom's not on yet, is she?
No, but I guarantee you my mom will be on.
Is she really? I'm
So
glad.
my mom watches every show. She watches every show, Rick, and she gives me her feedback on everybody.
I need
my mom. She's always got something nice to say about everybody.
Hi, Brendan's mom.
You are one of her favorites.
I am so glad. That is awesome to hear.
Yes. So I'll continue to let people join. I know we've got a lot of people queued up. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Great Lakes Shipwrecks Live. This is, I think, our 26th episode. And
wow.
Yeah, it's been a little over 2 years that we've been doing the show, although I do take the summers off because it's pretty hard to really go out and actually do shipwreck stuff on the lakes and hold the show every week. So I think we'll shut down the Dog and Pony show here sometime in late April, early May, because just too many people getting out, and it's shipwreck hunting season, right?
This has been a great COVID respite, though. I appreciate you providing this service to those of us who have been trapped inside.
Well, thank you, Rick. And I've been doing it before that. I actually started it before that. It was a year. I ran for a year before COVID, but it seems to have gotten popular during COVID. So anyway, welcome, everybody. We've got people joining, and a couple of housekeeping things I'll take care of. We've got a couple of really good guests lined up for the show. In particular, next week, I have a guest that Rick will know well. It's Carrie Soden, the underwater archaeologist from the National Museum of the Great Lakes. And both Rick and I have known Carrie for many years. She has done some incredible things down there. And she has really become one of the, really leading figures in Great Lakes underwater archaeology, and certainly on Lake Erie. I think she's the so excited to have Carrie and to hear her talk about the many important shipwrecks that she's been involved with on Lake Erie. And then also the National Museum of the Great Lakes is just a treasure. I'd really like to hear her talk about that. So and then let's see what else is going on. I appreciate the posts from everybody on the group. The group has been going really well. We've been getting a little surge in members again. It goes up and down. It's slow. New members slow down every so often, but for the last month, people have been joining willy-nilly. I don't know what happens, if it's somebody publicizes the group again or what. So thank you, everybody, for participating in the group, and for all your excellent posts and feedback on the group. It's always a lot of fun. We've had some great content and some interesting things happening. I think, Rick, you have to admit that the schooner contest there over in Lower Michigan has once again it's been rediscovered for the 35th time.
It's great to see it in the news again. It's awesome. None of us like to see erosion of our beaches, but here's a great byproduct.
That's right. Yeah, I think I just saw the article come out, the news thing come out today. Shipwreck emerges from the beach as it did last year, and the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that. Every year, the newspapers grab it like it just happened. So that's been fun.
Any news about the Great Lakes is awesome. That's what I have to go with. That's how I handled all the Griffin accounts, was get it in the news. That's fine.
That's true. That's true. What else would we have to talk about if the Griffin wasn't rediscovered every year in a different Great Lake? So without further ado, then why don't we get rolling? I'd like to remind all of our guests tonight, lastly, that we have a Zoom room afterwards tonight. Rick and I are going to well, have a nice conversation with all of our friends and guests. We'll have a short break of about 15 or 20 minutes after the show for you folks to run to the restrooms and get your adult beverages before we convene for for a social hour and some Q&A. So, all right. I am going to shut off the moniker here. There we go. And we will dive into our agenda for the evening. So Ric, for those of you, if there are any of you that don't know Ric's background, he was our first guest on this show in my inaugural episode.
That was a high honor, brother. A high honor.
Well, thank you, Ric. Over 2 years ago now. And back then we were just sort of getting the format of the show down, and I think Ric did a wonderful job helping me launch the show. So thank you so much. And thank you for coming on again. Ric has always got so many new irons in the fire that it would be a great opportunity for him to come on again. And, since that first show, I remember we just sort of reminisced and talked about all the crazy stuff, projects we've done together over the years. But I remember when I first met you, it was just before Deep Six came out. And
oh, wow.
I think you had contacted me for information on, I can't remember what it was, but we started working together.
My guess is Moreland. I would bet you it was a William C. Moreland.
It was. You contacted me with the Moreland because I had a lot of that on the Keweenaw. And so I remember just being so impressed with that documentary. It was the best thing I'd ever seen done on the Great Lakes. And and I've continued to be involved with you on different projects. The Armistice Day Storm documentary. I mean, I'll never forget. You located all these old sailors that were still alive from the 1913 storm, and you found the original video footage of the rescue of the crew from the Novadoc in 1940. And it's been so impressive to watch you do your work, Ric. And my main question for you tonight is, how do you do this? How do you go about making these documentaries? How did you get involved, and how do you get them? I mean, obviously, it's a career. Tell us about this. This is fascinating to me.
Honestly, people buy side scans to go find shipwrecks. I've just learned how to scan for survivors and how to scan, and part of it is going to newspapers and hoping that through the anniversaries, because you usually won't get anything from the year of the storm, like 1913, but dang it, you go to 1923 for the 10-year anniversary, and there's going to be newspaper articles about guys that were in the storm. So that's where I find a lot of it, is by going into anniversary editions and see, oh, that person's alive. And then the other thing is to go to any maritime museum that's nearby and just start talking and make friends with docents, because these people watch the old guys come in and stand at a certain place for a while, and they know who's who. So that, I literally put together my own little network of being able to find these people. And that's worked from, finding 1913, 1940 to the builders of the Edmund Fitzgerald to, I just recently found the guys that flew the P-3 Orion that discovered the Edmund Fitzgerald, and we'll talk more about that.
Wow.
Yeah. So, there's always people to find. And honestly, I think that's just kind of been what I do. If I brought slides, you want to see a slide? Let me show you something.
Why don't you throw up the slides, Ric?
I want to tell you, everybody who's seen me before knows most of the other stories. So I want to show something different. So what if we do, and Brendan, you tell me if we're live, so we're working. Do we see bucket list on there?
Well, we will in a second, Ric.
Check this out.
Still got a blank screen.
Okay.
Do you have it maximized?
I do have it maximized, yeah. And let me make sure that I didn't do, here, let me hit share. Let's see. My apologies to everybody till I get this thing going, and watch this through the powers of illusion. How's that?
No, it's still blank.
What?
Ric, let's reshare it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of it and remove it, and then let's share it again.
Okay. Here we go, and boom. And boom.
No worries. We're not fancy broadcast here. We're
That's
just
right.
a couple of guys talking.
Do you see bucket list?
I do not see it yet. The share has not happened.
This is so strange. I'm going to hit screen and share again, and I'm going to hit, it says it's sharing, and I hit this one.
There is sometimes a lag, but I'm not getting anything yet.
Huh. Now you're not?
Nope.
Well, it's easy to say that grew up in the UP and never dreamt that I'd be able to be a television reporter or anything. And quite honestly, the way it kind of came down for me was that I went on a radio morning talk show and pretended to be a superhero named Captain Macho. And I wish I could show you a picture, because this was like Q107 was the rock station, and I was 16 years old, and they hired me on the spot. And this is how I got into broadcasting. So instantly it was, from zero to now you're on the air. And then I did a telethon for Jerry's Kids on TV6 up in Marquette. And they said, you want to be on TV? And I said, sure. So they put me on TV, and I was a reporter there. And it just kind of cascaded from there. So you literally have 5 TV stations, probably 10 radio stations that I've done. And then by the time I got to Saginaw in 1990, there was an explosion of a ship called the Jupiter. And when the tanker exploded, they sent us out. And so for all night, I watched this tanker burn, and it was filled with millions of gallons of gasoline. And I was intrigued by, this is the largest tanker that ever sank. And I was also intrigued by the fact that the other TV station, Channel 12, Larry Elliott, if anybody knows the name from the Great Lakes Shipwreck Historical Society, Larry scooped us bad and knew all the dive team members from the state police and was able to get all these great shots from the water. And my boss was so upset that they said, why don't we have these shots? And I said, because you haven't made me a diver yet. And they literally said, all right, then you're going to be a diver. So I filled out like reams of paperwork on, safety protocols and that I would never sue the TV station if bad things happen. And I became their diver. And as soon as I grabbed an underwater camera, I went up to Thunder Bay and by Alpena and did a quick video series, borrowing a camera, and won 3 awards. And so the TV station was just excited. And they said, what do you want to do next? I want to do a talk on the 1913 storm. And that's just where it cascaded. Literally, the stories just got better and better and better. And every time I thought I couldn't pick a better adventure, one would just come my way. And finally, after I'd done a couple of shipwreck stories, that's when the Edmund Fitzgerald trip came up, and I was able to go and dive that in a submarine. So for me, that's kind of where it set the level. And by then, people were starting to say, hey, his stuff's kind of interesting. And we aired a couple programs on TV5. And then finally, I left the TV station and got tired of news and went to a production company where they made Deep Six with me. And I really need to get the screen working, because I brought you a present.
Yeah, let's do that, Rick. Let's just do that, because if we have to reboot the thing, we'll do it. Try one more share. We'll spend about 5 minutes and get this going.
Screen. For some reason,
try sharing the application instead of the screen, Rick.
Okay, let me turn this off and this off, and then do this.
So Rick will be right back with us. Ric Mixter is ready to share his screen, but we've lost Rick. So we've got Rick's bucket list, but we don't have Rick. So he'll be back in a minute. So for those of you who are joining us late, I want to remind everybody about our Zoom room tonight. It's going to be at, I think, 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern. Or you can join a few minutes early. Usually people are getting in there early. It should be a fun night with Rick, and we get some good socializing in. So here comes Rick back.
Perfect. Now.
All right, Rick, we got your bucket list up.
Let's see. Okay.
So tell us a little bit more about the adventure to becoming Ric Mixter, and then let's dive right into how you make documentaries.
I will. This is my first dive. This is this is me next to the old Norge and in the Upper Peninsula as a kid. And here's me at Marquette. And the reason I've got such a skinny frame here is because I would ride my bike 20 miles from Sands all the way to Marquette just to read Fred Stonehouse books. That was my whole quest, was to go to Peter White Library, grab the latest book, then go for a swim, and then ride my bike all the way back. And for anybody who's gone down 553, it's actually a ski hill. And by the end of the summer, I could actually go up and down that in 10th gear. So I had a lot of fun learning about shipwrecks, and thank God for Fred Stonehouse, because that's where I got a lot of my stories from. This is Captain Macho. This is how I got my gig on the radio. That is an official beer towel cape you see there, and welding goggles, pretty famous. Here's Jupiter, and it was intense. I mean, they lost a sailor in September 16th when he jumped overboard. The stories of the rescues in here, I'm making into a podcast and hopefully a documentary. I just worked out a deal with my old TV station on footage so we can do something with this. And I have yet to find the crew. This has been weird that, such a recent shipwreck and it's hard to find them. So if any of my friends know of any of the crew, let me know. This is actually filming the 1913 documentary. And of course, we get all excited when we get across the lake and they kick up, because we need video of storms. And here's me filming the lake getting pretty angry. And this is right in Goderich. So we got to meet some people and go to the sailors' graveyard that's there, and really be where sadly all of those bodies washed ashore. It was pretty intense to know that. And anybody who's watched a Ric Mixter documentary knows that I've got an amazing team of songwriters. Dan Hall on the left, David O'Norris in the middle, who writes the lyrics. Dan does all the songs, and Dan is my buddy during Storm, the concert that we've been doing. We've now done 18 concerts around the Great Lakes. This is Tom Knab filming with me in front of Delta. This is our dive to the Edmund Fitzgerald. I later took Delta that next year to go to the Carl Bradley. We relocated the wreck, and we're the first ones to actually do anything with that. And so that came into documentaries and paintings. From our expedition, Jim Clary did this painting of the Bradley going down. I took that picture of Frank Mays, and as you guys know, Frank just passed away last month, and it's just sad. I mean, to lose not only Dennis Hale, but also Frank, and really the only pieces that we have left now are the stories that the interviews he's given. And mine was the first one that they did for TV. So I was very, very, very excited to have Frank go with us on this dive and to eventually become Deep Six. This is another survivor from the Cedarville. Deep Six was the first documentary to do interviews and the story of the Cedarville. And I found all kinds of footage from the rescue and stuff like that, and the German sailor that helped to rescue them. We rebuilt a bunch of things. That life jacket you see there, we made out of a styrofoam and had a seamstress pull it together so we could do some of the scenes. And if you watch the show, and you probably watched my lectures, you've seen this life raft. We built it out of hot pepper barrels. And you literally, your eyes would burn as you worked with the ladder because the peppers that were in there. But one side said Cedarville, and one said Bradley, and one said Morel. So we could do the shots on both sides. And this is filming off the break wall in Petoskey, not far from where the crucifix is. So it was neat to do that as well. And this was my gift for you, Brendan. I wanted to show some stuff, and I had an old tape, and this turned out to be bloopers from Deep Six. So for anybody that it was just on PBS last week, again, it's been 24 years, 23 years. And here's some of the outtakes for you, B. So it's a little different. Yes, sir.
Historians estimate that some 3,000 ships have met their match by Mother Nature. In fact, this area, known as the Thumb of Michigan, is considered by many to be the most treacherous spot on the Great Lakes. On a map, it's known as Point au Barque, which is French for Point of Boats, which is in honor of a rock formation which resembles a point of a boat. I want to say that again for those of you who are. Sadly, one of the sailors from Deep Six has already passed on. Another witness of our history gone. Programs like Deep Six preserve their memories. Come on, Mix.
No, the best output or outcome from all of these has been the friends that I've met, and Dennis Hale is one of the greatest. Many people probably don't know that I published his second book for him. I did it for free because his story just needed to be told. He sold, I think, 10,000 copies out of the back of his van. Just an amazing story. And to go 2 nights on a life raft, in his underwear, it's just pretty intense. This is Goldie and the wheelsman Lloyd Belcher from the Novadoc. And I remember I talked to Brendan, and he had already found the guys and said, well, you're not going to want to talk to Goldie. And I got to tell you, he turned out to be the greatest interview that I've ever done. And for anybody who's seen Safe Ashore or Final Run, he's a huge part of it. And afterward we got done, he took my whole family. He goes, I want to take you someplace special. And he took us to KFC. It was so much fun. And he passed away not long after that.
Yeah, he was quite a character. I interviewed him extensively. I recorded him, maybe an hour on the phone.
Wow.
And, he was kind of a curmudgeon, but very colorful. Lloyd was a lot more outgoing, but 2 great guys. I was privileged to have gotten a chance to interview them.
And Goldie told me too, and it's very powerful. I should have put the clip on here, but he goes, why did you guys wait 60 years until we're all dead? 17 guys survived the ship, and you waited this long. And it really sunk home to me that there wasn't a lot of people doing these kinds of documentaries. And luckily, there are people doing them now. I mean, there's several TV stations, and luckily, some very creative folks that are doing stuff now. This is a picture from the oldest freighter on the Great Lakes. This is the Alpina, and this is going through the Soo locks. And look where I'm at. I'm at the very top of the smokestack. People looked at the locks. They saw the ugliest seagull sitting up on the top. I wanted to get a time lapse of how the ships raise and lower going through the locks. And so that's where I got to raise, to go. And I was black from the soot afterwards, which probably wasn't the world's greatest idea, but dang, that's a cool perch, and probably one that not many people have done. Another great assignment was the Thunderbirds. I got to fly many Air Force missions. I went to Germany and back in a B-52. We never landed. I pulled 9 Gs in an F-16. To talk at NASA last year was a highlight of my career. They wanted to hear about Fitzgeralds and storms, and I tied it into meteorology, and it was just a real honor to be able to go there and talk as well. Doing lectures live, especially on a Shepler boat and talking lighthouses, is also a highlight. I just love being out in front of crowds. That's why Storm is so much fun. This is a story I did for PBS. On the Soo locks, we're talking about building the new Soo lock, but this was actually just some maintenance that they were doing on the Poe. And to go through it, all the way through the bottom and stuff, and go where very few people get to go. It's been kind of what my career has been all about. And then to help PBS, even though it didn't go well for me with COVID, I got laid off. I still went back and did promos for them for their 2 largest fundraisers that they've had. And they're very excited now with maritime history. They've aired Deep Six and Edmund Fitzgerald, and we're talking about doing my new book as well. But I'd spent part of COVID going through stuff for a new book that I'll tell you in a second. But the main thing I've done in the last month has been going over my notes from the Delta dives. And because I had cameras everywhere, especially my own High 8, I recorded everything in the submarine. So part of the 4-hour podcast that I've done for the Edmund Fitzgerald podcast is actually my audio as we're plowing through and getting lost down there and making our way through the different pieces. And I kind of put commentary on each of the pieces we find, including the hatch covers for hatches 2 and 3, which were way over by the stern. And I don't think anybody's ever talked about that. So there's some neat stuff that'll come up. And I hope with the podcast, it'll start some thinking. Highlight though, for me, is to meet the guys that built it. This is one of the welders. He just recently passed as well, Ed Demansky. And my whole course I laid out by going over the videotape on where I went on the shipwreck. And it's helped me to really figure out some of the things that after I read the 3,000 pages of the Coast Guard report, I wanted to know more about the things that they found versus the things that we found. And there's a lot of differences that I found, and I've included a lot of that as well. Jimmy Hobaugh, one of the best interviews, and unfortunately, he got sick with cancer, but this was the last lecture he did, and it was with me in Bay City, which was huge. He, of course, being the captain on the Woodrush that went out to not only look for the crew and only found half a lifeboat, but later would be the staging area for the Curve 3, all the side scans. And I found a crew member and Jimmy for the podcast. And as I talked before, the guys from the P3 Orion. But I think that gets me up to the book now. I hope I didn't bore you.
Rick, we had to catch up there and make up for lost time. I got a kick out of your giving a talk on the Shepler's ferry there. I'll never forget. They invited me to give shipwreck talks on the Badger, right?
Wow.
And so I, it's one of the reasons I don't talk often on ships is I decided I was going to talk about the Pere Marquette 18, and I was like, we're going right over the spot, and I'm like, yeah, I think we're right about where she went down. She was a car ferry, and afterwards they came up to me and said, we don't talk about lost car ferries on this boat.
Oh, so any other ship is okay as long as it's an old schooner.
And then get myself disinvited from presenting on the Badger anymore.
Can you imagine my surprise then, Brendan, that I'm working on this book called Bottled Goodbyes, and the last chapter that I decided to do was on the reason why there's no more bottled goodbyes. And in my estimation, it was, that they went to message tubes, and then from message tubes, which brings us into the Milwaukee tube that was found, then it goes into radio. And once radio was invented, and I do a whole chapter on going into the early radio and how they did the first broadcast off Chicago. I was literally writing the story on the Pere Marquette when they found it. And I couldn't believe it. I had all this research, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, we start to hear Elias and the team come up with this amazing find. And I was thrilled. So this book actually has the first pictures that came out from the Pere Marquette. So sure. Great story, great serendipity, and brings up a great point in the fact that I have not met a person, Brendan, on this. We talked about my partnership with you. Fred Stonehouse has been amazing at sharing things. I can't even name all the people that have pictures in Bottled Goodbyes. Many of them are on this podcast right now. It's amazing to me how many people just give and say, let's do it. I couldn't afford to pay for every picture that's in there. And right. to know that we have the generosity of this maritime community to make something amazing for other people to read is a blessing. It really is.
So, Rick, what I'm curious about on this is, a lot of people have written a lot of different kinds of books, right, on the Great Lakes. So many that I think I told you last night, I kind of quit buying modern books because there's so much rehash. But this is a cool topic. What made you key in on the concept of the message in a bottle?
It's easy to say. It was the barge Plymouth. I mean, this is the number one, probably most publicized letter in a bottle found on the Great Lakes. When Chris Keenan wrote that letter and threw it off the barge in the 1913 storm, and it washed ashore just north of Manistee, newspapers went crazy about it. And there was a lot for other ships too. And I can show you a couple. The big note that came up from the Benjamin Noble, in this amazing picture that was taken by Mr. Klopf as they left port with almost decks awash. The court case, I actually found this book in India, and that was where COVID kind of came in. The sad part is we were trapped in our house. The good part was I could use newspapers now to start to search the stories that I knew of, and then do deep searches on just the term bottled goodbyes, messages in a bottle, and all the different variants until I came up with hundreds of different ones. And then I could go through and try to vet each one of the stories out. So I found Titanic stuff. I found, amazing things on the Great Lakes. This one was great because the whole court case was there, and combining this book along with the notes that Jerry Eliason sent, because he discovered this wreck in deep water, it really helped this story come alive. Another story that you guys have all heard so much, and this is Cal Kathradi's amazing picture of the Christmas tree ship. I really wanted to get to the bottom of what always puzzled me about this ship, and is how did it become famous? There's 6 Christmas tree ships that were lost with their cargoes. Why did this one get so famous? And in the book, I talk a lot about his family, and this young lady in the corner, Elsie, never got such great press. She was a master marketer and really turned it into being they became the family for Christmas trees because of her. So I talk a lot about that, and I talk a lot of, I mean, they destroyed the career of a lifesaver. It's interesting how the families, really railed that poor guy. He went back into groceries after that, lost his job. And this another great story on the Kamloops is another one of those bottle stories that I'd always known about, and I always wanted to know what was more about it. And I found the family, and I found this is Alice's picture. Who,
wow,
sad story is that Alice was on the Kamloops and got off the boat and took a lifeboat and went to Isle Royal. And sadly, in December, there's nobody there, and they just didn't have anybody to rescue them. And by the time people could get there, they had frozen to death. And her last note is still held by the family. And I'd hoped to get it in the book, and I pleaded with the family. They're now talking about maybe releasing it. And I don't know if that's because of Bottle of Goodbyes, but the note, I've seen fragments, and quite honestly, I've got pieces of it. But the family didn't want it out there, and I honored that. That's only fair.
So it was 22 below that night too.
Yeah,
that's one of the most horrifying Great Lakes shipwreck stories I've ever heard. And I go there every year. I'm going there again. What an amazing story to write up. And I don't believe that anyone's ever really written out the Kamloops, survivor story before. So kudos to you for doing that.
I love it. And the story has just been amazing. I mean, for me, it's just about taking things and then adding something new. I would not write a new podcast. I would not write a new book or a video if I didn't add something new. And that is just my commitment to make sure that, people aren't getting rehash of stuff just to do it. So I hope that book becomes more for people, and you can get it. I'll put an address at the end of the screen, but yeah, for me, it's about looking for the next adventure. And you and I have talked about this adventure. Do you recognize the stern of this vessel?
Is that the Moreland?
Nope.
Oh, no, wait. No, I know what that is. What? This is video? How the heck did you get video?
Oh, Brendan, come on. Who are you talking to? Who are you talking to?
What the heck?
Isn't that amazing?
I never would have guessed the video existed of this.
For my friends, this is a car hauling ship that was loaded with captains. I mean, I think they had 4 captains on board when they ran aground out in the middle of the boondocks on the Keweenaw Peninsula. There's the lifeboat steamer, the city of Bangor, built in Bay City. And the wreck, that these guys all got ashore, and they had a couple captains on board because they were all going back to Duluth. And the story goes, because I have an interview in one of my podcasts that you can listen to for free at shipwreckpodcast.com. You actually hear him talk about how they went down and got off of the ship into waist deep snow, started walking through it, and the captains made the crew carry their luggage. And it turns out that halfway through the snow, they couldn't do it anymore, and they just left the luggage there. And that one guy looked at the captain and said, "You're not on the ship anymore, skipper." So they were done. But the story has always been, as you know, that during the war effort and a little after, they scrapped these ships, and everybody's always wondered where the heck they are. And I knew that they had taken pictures, especially in the 40s, of this area. And I thought, man, there's got to be somebody that's got a location on these. And sure enough, I found out exactly where they got those ships. Here's both the city of Bangor and the Altadoc locked into some key points. And Brendan, we are going to find a trail to go and look at these. Again, there's probably nothing major out there, but this is the first time that this location has been absolutely ascertained. And it's very clearly the city of Bangor up on the left in the Altadoc.
Yeah,
nothing else to be up there.
And, I remember, Art Lassen, the old commercial fisherman from Traverse City. He used to go by there with his dad when he was a little boy, and they have pictures of the boats being scrapped. And I think I'm going to send you one little brownie camera picture.
Oh, yeah.
As a little boy. I think it was the Altadoc being scrapped. But yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit. The Altadoc in Bangor. That's going to be a fun thing that Ric and I are going to try to do so. Anyway, carry on, Rick.
You bet. Let me put back onto the video, and I think I should be back with you now, right?
I think so.
Nice.
Cool. So we are back. So Rick, let me just take a look at a few other things. We have a couple of things that I know we're interested in doing this year, and one of them is a trip to the Keweenaw.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I are both from the UP. We both grew up reading Fred Stonehouse books and dreaming of finding lost things up there. And I love nothing more than to take my little boat and putz around on the Keweenaw waterway with my side scan, finding old pieces of mining debris and old cultural artifacts from that era. And there's a ton of stuff up there on the bottom that needs to be looked at. But I think one of the most exciting things I always heard, and he's actually on right now watching us. Mark Rowe is sort of
hi, Mark.
expert on all things. Well, really, City of Bangor and Altadoc, but in many of the shipwrecks, he, was sort of the original shipwreck historian up there, and still is. Very active with the Keweenaw County Historical Society. Has done probably more than anyone up there to interpret those shipwrecks up on Sawtooth Reef. But anyway, we've always wanted to see definitively where the City of Bangor and Altadoc really were, and to see if there's anything left. And Mark walked the shore there, and kind of thought he knew where they were. But now that we actually have that aerial footage or that aerial imagery showing those hulls, that's 1938 if I'm not mistaken. So I think what we're seeing there are just the hull beds. The upper works had already been cut off, but we can go right to the site. And what we're going to do is tell the story of the ships, but also tell the story, we're going to go on site and show what it really looks like there where they were lost. And old Rick and I are going to suit up and jump in the water. And I've always heard anecdotal reports that there are great big rivets shaped like giant steel mushrooms on the bottom from where they took apart the deck plating. I don't know if that's true, but we're going to find out.
You'd figure the scrappers would leave it. I mean, there's some things that's just not worth picking up. And with the storm damage and with the stories of the cars being rolled into balls of rubber and steel, the hope is someday that we'll be able to find something out there, and even just remnants of the shack that they built to guard the wrecks. Any of that stuff is amazing. And in the UP, there's a good chance it was left there because it's not like it's super developed. That's what I like about these remote locations like Isle Royal and stuff, that there's possibilities that you can find some of that stuff. That's why I love diving. I mean, we're going to the places that won't disappear because they're protected underwater. People think it's macabre when I sometimes talk to audiences. They're like, why do you look at shipwrecks? Come on, this is 200 years old, 150 years old, and nobody's touched it. Of course I want to go see these things. The people, the death of the shipwrecks and stuff, which is obviously a sad part about it. And I think nobody's dealt with it more than I have because of the body we found on the Fitzgerald. But I think that people know that in my heart, that's not what it's about. It's about the amazing rescues. If you watch any of my documentaries like Cutter Rescue, it's about the guy in the helicopter pilot that flew on zero fuel, and plucked the guys from the Nordmere out. And we've got footage of that, of the guys rescued. And it's just, that's what really attracts me to this. Not, the Fitzgerald was different because this was 29 guys that vanished in 1975 when all the other big shipwrecks had, people found. Most of the crew of the Bradley, most of the crew of the Morel were located. Fitzgerald's crew vanished, and that's why the song was so big. That's why you keep hearing about Gitcha Gumi never giving up its dead. And then we found a crew member after Cousteau and Whitefish Point and Joe McGinnis, and all these other people had been there. And we broke that mystery. And I think that that's a legitimate story. And it certainly was reinforced by the newspaper attention we got. But it doesn't make friends with families who lost loved ones. And I appreciate that. Yeah,
that's one of the things that, I guess I've always thought there's sort of a ghoul community, for lack of a better term, surrounding some of these wrecks and almost a cult. I've always found that a little bit odd, but I think you do a good job of not, delving too deeply into that sort of odd space. But one of the things that is coming back really strongly, particularly on YouTube, are these abandoned places
Oh yeah.
videos, right? And the shipwreck genre really fits in well with that. I'm just sort of waiting for people, and actually people are rediscovering it, a lot of people like Dusty Cliffman and
Yep.
Chris Roxburgh are starting to attract that audience a little bit into the Great Lakes maritime history community, because these are abandoned places. They are pretty
huge.
Cool.
And the one thing I'll throw that way is that I get upset, and people who've heard me on stage know I talk about this. I get pissed off when I hear about some of these programs making stuff up about the Great Lakes. And the truth is, there's so many amazing stories that you don't need to go into stupidness, like gold. And I mean, honestly, it almost is insulting to the amazing history that we do have. There's stuff that I scratch my head. I don't believe in ghosts, and you probably won't see a ghost story from Ric Mixter, but there's stuff that you got to scratch your head and go, this doesn't make any sense. So I get it. But I also, when producers come, and Brendan, this, big producers will come to the lakes and they'll say, this is what you're going to say, and not even tell a story because they've already got it in their head. And for me, that's garbage, and it's always got to be about the submarine breaking or something bad happening, and they add drama into stuff. And I hate to be Pollyanna about this, but the truth is that we have so many cool stories. There's so much stuff out there that is real that we never need to go into that. And I think it's just lazy producing that people think they need to have those stories. And I'm off my soapbox now.
Well, no, you're preaching to the choir, Rick. As somebody who's appeared on Nat Geo, History, Discovery, Travel, well, not all of them were distasteful. Nat Geo, I thought, did a nice job, but other than that, a lot of those shows, oh my God, it just was reality TV. The worst one of all, and if Ken Merriman and Jerry Eliason will remember this, they wanted to shoot a pilot called American Wreck Hunters. It was going to be a TV show, and we went up to Minneapolis, St. Paul. I was going to be the historian, and we had it all arrayed, and we were all, we were already figuring out who was going to be what personalities. And I'll never forget, they pulled me aside and said, well, don't any of you guys have tattoos or chain smoke or swear? I'm like, well, no.
What the heck? If it means the show, I'll get one of Mom right here.
Yeah, I mean, we're really all pretty much geeks, I mean, Ken Merriman here is he designs computer chips for Unisys. I'm a software engineer.
Do you know what tattoo I would get? And if anybody wants to get one with me, tell me. 977. Does anybody know what that means? Oh, it's the Dewey Decimal for Great Lakes, right?
Oh, gotcha.
That's what we're going to get. That'll be our new club. And when you see me in a lecture, come up and point to your 977.
Very cool. So, Rick, let me ask you this. When we go up to Keweenaw Point, in our wild goose chase for the Bangor and Alta Dock, what do you think about those cars that got pushed overboard or were swept overboard off the Bangor before she came ashore? Are there some 1920? What were they? Chryslers?
27s, yeah.
Sitting on the bottom out there. What do you think? Should we go get them?
I think so. I mean, and just to know, I know Mark knows that the museum has one, and that's amazing. The story that I heard was that one of the Yoopers drove one off into the woods, and they were paying the locals a certain amount of money, a quarter a car or something like that. And he drove and parked it, and then came back and got another car and got another quarter and drove that one back to the holding area before they brought him to Calumet. So if that's true, that's an amazing story for a vessel or for a car that is now on display at, is it Rock Harbor? Where's it at?
Eagle Harbor.
Eagle Harbor. Yeah, that's amazing. The Yooper history for me, and I'm partial because I was born up there, but it's amazing. And I don't think a lot of it, God bless. I keep saying Fred Stonehouse, but you guys have to know that Peter White Library is packed with his books, even the early Munising stuff, and to chronicle that stuff and to share that history that you don't find in Radigan's books and the other ones too, which again, Bill Radigan, another journalist turned writer, Bowen, another journalist turned writer. these stories have captivated me. Having Hearst, an old English teacher, professor that wrote amazing stuff. And if you look at Having Hearst Long Ships Passing, that's where that's where Gordon Lightfoot got his lyric from. The lyric, Lake Superior not giving up its dead, an old Native American passing was taken from that passage and then put into the Newsweek magazine article that aired during the cruelest month was the name of the article that Gordon Lightfoot read. So that's where that came from. And it had to have been Having Hearst. It fits too perfectly.
Oh yeah. Well, Having Hearst, actually it was his book, Long Ships Passing, that really, where I really got the bug, and what a great piece of writing. Having Hearst's book was more literary. He was a really talented writer, and it wasn't just telling stories or facts. It really is a very moving account of the development of America through the Great Lakes. And man, and he won awards for that. He was a very highly acclaimed literary guy. But Stonehouse, you mentioned his books. Some people collect his books. I collect all the editions of his early editions, the really weird, the first ones, and the staple bound ones from back in the 1973, And at one time, everyone's heard this here probably, but I showed up at one of the events with a stack of his books about 1.5 feet high, and I was a young guy, and I go, Mr. Stonehouse, would you sign my books? It's like, you're not going to sell these, are you? I'm like, no. They're worth more signed,
Well, and I will say this about my good friend Fred. Did you know that when I rode my bike, I was driving right by his house when he lived in Marquette, and had I known, I would have dropped in on the guy because he was from there, and that's crazy. And he wouldn't. When I worked at TV 12 and TV 5, he would not do a TV interview. And the thing that sucked about that is the fact that he's so good at it. I mean, he's been in so many programs since then that my God, I wish I would have had that first interview, but it just wasn't going to happen.
But you'll get a chance to talk to him tonight in the Zoom room. He's
too cool.
Perpetual hanger-on in our Zoom rooms. So if you want to meet Mr. Stonehouse, he often stops in.
There you go.
So Rick, one of the things that we've talked about, and I haven't told too many people this, but when I was a young man, we used to hear tell that down by the Quincy smelter docks in Ripley, if you went scuba diving around those pilings, you could take a metal rod and stick it into the bottom, and you would hit copper ingots.
Yeah. Because
they fell off the docks. They'd be wheeling them up those narrow gangplanks in hand carts into the steamers, and occasionally one would, fall off, and then they'd lose their balance and they'd go into the lake. Back then, those copper ingots, like an iron ingot, it was
sure.
Yeah, you didn't want to lose 20 of them, but one or two. Not worth the dive, And over the years, before the establishment of the Keweenaw National Historical Park, people recovered them.
Yeah.
And all you'd have to do is rig a mailbox, on your outboard motor and blow a little hole in the bottom and tie a rope to the ingot and sort of try to lift it up without capsizing your boat because they're pretty heavy. Those ingots were not worth much back then. I won't give away too much, but suffice to say, somebody recovered some and sold them at melt value for scrap as a young man. And I can't remember what it was, 50 cents a pound or something. You come with $20 for an ingot. You thought you were on top of the world. Nowadays, those ingots are worth like $1,000 on eBay.
Wow. It's too bad they don't make a detector that could tell you copper from iron. Wait a minute.
Okay. Maybe they do.
What?
Well, and it just so happens that not every smelter dock is in the National Historical Park.
Yep. Yeah. There you go.
Anyway, but
I'm
going to the Keweenaw this spring to do some stuff.
That, and I'll tell you what, I want to see the quarries where the sandstone came out of, because anybody who's dove the C.H. Johnson in the Straits knows those giant blocks, that red sandstone that was so popular before marble took over the stinkers. They were building apparently a bank building, and the Johnson went down just between St. Helena Island and the mainland in the UP by Gros Cap, and the blocks are there, and they've got numerals on them and everything. And I'd love to see the old mines from those.
That's not the only one. There's a vessel still missing off of Kenosha.
Yep.
The blah blah blah. I want to say H.C. Richards, but it's not the Richards.
No,
it's the darn it. I just gave a talk about this. Anyway, carrying Jacobsville Redstone. And my son's great-grandfather was a quarry worker at Jacobsville. My former wife's family is all from Jacobsville.
That's cool.
And they settled there in the 1890s and worked in those redstone quarries. And I've got a lot of pictures of that era. There's a little cemetery there in Jacobsville, and the whole family's buried there. And it was a small Finnish community split about 30 between farmers, commercial fishermen, and quarry workers. And the quarry is an amazing site. If you're ever interested, we definitely stop.
I am totally interested, and especially if we get big waves and can't do what we want to do. That's the one thing we've learned, and I think everybody who's on this chat knows that you don't go up there and plan on doing everything in a day. You've got to have alternative plans, and it better be terrestrial, because many times I'm just filming big waves and I can't go dive in, and that just happens. So, but you learn. I mean, that's the thing. And the other thing I never have is a big budget. I've never spent over $4,000, including airfare, on any of my programs. So to think about people having budgets, and I saw Becky's talk about having a camera, that would be amazing to have a toy like that, even though I know in my heart the talent of that lady is in her mind. The lens helps, but she is just an amazing talent. So for me, I'm confident I could build a pretty good documentary on VHS, and I've done it. So it's about telling a great story. It's about digging up things that people don't know, and it's about finding these eyewitnesses to history that are still out there. And I hope that people that are on, today realize that there's other stories to be told. There's so many shipwrecks that have not been, they don't have a song like the Fitzgerald, so they get forgotten. And it's our job to dig them up. And it's not just about finding the wreck. It's about finding these eyewitnesses that not only lived through the wreck, but also saved these people, or salvage the ship. Those guys and gals are amazing too. So there's a lot of stories that we haven't even scoped yet. And I hope that, I hope we inspire other people to do that, because I'm old now. And
that's right. Well, if I want my collection to be worth anything someday, we have to attract young people to this.
That's right. And serious people. Someone said I don't look serious with my hat. And I thought to myself, when did Ric Mixter ever appear serious to anybody? I don't think it's ever happened, as a matter of fact. You can't take yourself seriously. I mean, it's wonderful that people follow the shows and they know, that for me, it's about meeting new friends. It's about telling a story nobody knows. And for honestly, my greatest productions I've ever done are my kids. It's about being a good dad. It's being about an amazing grandparent. And that's what's important, being a serious rock and roll shipwreck star. I don't think so. And I don't play the part very well anyways.
Well, that's the thing, you have to keep perspective on it. I mean, like my mom thinks that I'm famous. And like,
you are, though.
I am, to a community of about 100 people.
That's awesome. I love it. Hey, are you going to show your new book that you got today? Or are you going to wait till the chat room?
I'll just give people a little quick preview. So
many people know that are not going to believe this.
Many people know that I collect really early Great Lakes material, and particularly stuff related to the French exploration of the Great Lakes. I really enjoy original material from the LaSalle expeditions on the Great Lakes. And I own, this is the earliest book I own. It just came in. This is Father Louis Hennepin's first book, a description of Louisiana, or Description de la Louisiane. And it's from 1683. It's the actual book, first edition. And it is in pretty good shape. It's in the original French, and he gives a very detailed account in here of the loss of the Griffin. which is partially why I bought it, but also because I also own Hennepin's second book, New Discovery of a Vast Country in America from 1698. And these are amazing artifacts. They are just as, I mean, they're historical objects in and of themselves, because particularly this one here, I mean, Hennepin was alive when this book came out. So I enjoy collecting these, and I also, I mean, obviously I read the reprints, you know. And the French I can read the French, but it's slow. I read it about a quarter of the speed I read English. So when I want to read it and study it, I'll usually go to a different translation or the English translation. But
when I heard you had those, I was like, dude, what do those smell like? I mean, that
it smells like French mildew.
That's crazy. Something as old as the Griffin. That's crazy.
Well, it's really cool to have this stuff that's that old, you know, and that's a really important part of Great Lakes history. The other thing that I think I've never showed here before, but I've showed online, is the original, this is the earliest chart of the Great Lakes to show all 5 Great Lakes, and this is the original from Nicolas Sanson from 1665. And you can see Lake Huron. You can see what they knew of Lake Superior and Lake Michigan. And it's a copper plate engraving print. It's really sharp. I own 4 different of these really early French maps from the 1600s and 1700s. And they're interesting because they demonstrate what was known at the time about the lakes and the place names. And in particular, some of the maps that Hennepin did show some of their insights into what they knew about where the Griffin had sailed and what happened to her. So they're important historical artifacts. Someday I'll donate them all to a museum.
Yeah.
So anyway,
that'd be amazing.
Yeah, it definitely will be. These are the kind of things that I think help tell the stories of these wrecks. And I like to bring them out when I speak, because they are, you know, say you want to talk about the Griffin, right? Mostly all we have is tales. It's pretty cool when you can actually bring the book from 1683 and put it on the table and say, this is from, this tells the story of the Griffin contemporary to her time. So interesting. So anyway, Rick, enough about me.
I enjoy it. This is a highlight of watching all of the shows that you've had and the amazing guests that you've had. It's just to see how many people have dedicated their lives. You know, no one's gotten rich doing this. And to know the network that we have here, and I mean this with all of my heart, this team, Mark at Bowling Green, I couldn't do anything without these people. And know, please, that your generosity, your dedication, the bow thruster picture that I just got from the Edmund Fitzgerald up at Superior too. People just want to help. And to me, that's what makes it possible, because otherwise it would take forever. I try to get the researching and I'll do the finding of these things, but there's some things that I would never have time for if it wasn't for my amazing group of friends that are on right now. And please know from my heart that that's the only reason that we get these programs on the air, and the stuff that I do. It has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with your generosity, and I am forever grateful. I really am.
Well, Rick, we really appreciate the work that you do, and I think that's why you get so much support. You know, again, I think most people realize that none of this stuff makes money. It actually costs a lot of money. It's, you know, something we do instead of, you know, whatever, going golfing or buying big boats. You know, you might know Rick and I, neither one of us own a big boat. You know, we don't have a lot of plant property and equipment, you know. Well, maybe I do with the books, but we don't, you know, that's kind of what we do instead of having, you know, meaningful social life and going on fancy vacations.
It's fun though. And you know, again, if you guys need anything from me, always know that you can call me. Facebook friend me. I keep up to date on a lot of stuff. And if you go to shipwreckpodcast.com, there's 10 hours of stuff you can get for free. The new Fitzgerald stuff is up. It's premium, so you have to pay $20. It's 4 hours of the best interviews that I've ever done on the Fitzgerald. So the builders, the people that sailed it, the people that investigated the sinking, Cooper. It's got Captain Wilson from the Inquiry Board. I opened my archives up and poured everything that I thought was great in there. And then all the expeditions, just like my documentary, are all represented. So you get McGinnis, the incredible Tom Farnquist, who, as you guys know, is sick right now. We all wish him the very best to a speedy recovery. We need him around to do more shipwreck investigations. He just helped find the Russia. So we need this.
Is that GoFundMe site still up there that we posted on the group?
It is. It's doing fantastically well, but they're not at goal yet. And I know that the family would appreciate it. And I mean, for me, it's a fantastic investment. I mean, here's a guy that's done everything for shipwrecks, and I'm proud to be on the board at Whitefish now.
Well, that's really cool, Rick. And I want to encourage people, if you want to donate to Tom Farnquist's GoFundMe for his health needs, he's I think he needs a lung transplant. And
possibly because of diving. I mean, they don't know for sure, but my God, I mean, this is a person that literally diving Superior City in these deep wrecks and bringing this history to us. You know, it's worth the investment to keep them around.
Yeah, so please contribute if you can. A couple of housekeeping things before we wrap up. We're getting close to time. We have this show will be uploaded to YouTube. So if you want to share it outside of the Great Lakes Shipwrecks Research Group, you share it off of our YouTube page. It'll be uploaded later tonight. Don't miss the Zoom room. 15-20 minutes from now, go grab a beer, come and join us in the Zoom room, and you'll get to see all your friends in there. And don't forget to join us for next week's amazing guest, Carrie Sodin. She has done an amazing amount of really important work on the Great Lakes, and we're going to explore her career and get to know her a little bit better. So, Rick, thank you so much for coming back on the show.
It's an honor to be on this show and to share stories with you. It's so much fun, and to see my friends. This is a highlight during a very difficult year, but to know my dive friends are here, that's awesome.
All right. Well, watch the group. I'll be posting the Zoom room link in a few minutes. Thank you so much, Rick, and thank you, everybody, for joining us. Good night.
Good night.